Hello friends, enjoy listening. Hello, my name is Yasmin. I am currently 32 years old and I am a nurse in a hospital. I wanted to be a nurse since high school and I was doing everything I could to win the university. I was studying from night to morning, and after school, I was going to the cram school and working there too. Being a nurse was my dream, healing patients, rushing to their aid, especially dressing the wounds of small children was a pride for me. I finished high school and started university. I studied next to the university community. However, after the university was over, I told my family that I wanted to move to a separate house and wanted to live alone. Music, they knew it. So they thought a little and made a decision and allowed us to live in a separate house. Even though we had some financial difficulties with Seda, it was worth it. The house was really as we wanted. Now all our business was on track. Seda and I had found a job at the same hospital. However, this was not a normal hospital, it was a mental hospital. When we first started working, even though Seda hesitated, I told her that they were no different from a normal patient, that they needed love and compassion. When I heard the term, mentally ill, I never thought of people who acted like crazy or harmed the person in front of them. I just thought of them as a normal patient. At first, these thoughts did not deceive me. However, later when I stayed on the night shift, things had changed. I normally did not work on the night shift, but a friend had a wedding, so she would not be able to work at nights for a while. Therefore, when she asked me to stay in her place, I did not refuse her. There was a man with me. He always worked on the night shift. I was glad I was not alone. The first night, Aaron told me that this job is a bit different from what it seems during the day. Be very careful and attentive. I thought the patients were more comfortable at night because they all sleep, I said. He looked at my face and smiled. Not all, some never sleep at night, he said. That night was very calm. Aaron said I will check the patients and come back, and left. I got up to get coffee at that time. While preparing the coffees, I heard someone walking by dragging their feet. When I checked the corridor, there was no one. I returned to my job, the sound came closer this time. When I checked again, I saw a patient walking alone. I left my spouse and went to her with quick steps. Before I could get there, she turned right from the corridor and disappeared from sight. It took a few seconds to get there, but I was surprised to see no one there. I wondered how someone who moved so slowly disappeared in such a short time and where they went. When I came back to get the coffees, I saw the coffee cups on the ground. It was a bit messy around. I checked the surroundings again and cleaned up the mess. I prepared the coffees and sat down. A few seconds later, Aaron came. When I asked him if everything was okay, he said yes, everything is fine, sipping his coffee and looking around. Since it was my first time staying on the night shift, I was a bit sleepy. I looked at the files related to the patients while drinking my coffee. Meanwhile, I heard a sound. Aaron and I music went there. When we entered, an old woman was standing in a corner of the room, looking at us with fearful eyes filled with true horror. While trying to calm her down, she was crying, saying they came to take me. Even though he said that there was no one there and everything was fine, the woman never listened to him. When she saw that we wanted to calm her down with an injection, she suddenly went crazy. She scratched Aaron's face with her nails and escaped from our hands. Aaron's face was covered in blood. While trying to catch her running after her, she had already woken up other patients by screaming. I ran and took the phone in my hand. I immediately called security and asked for help. Rami and Devut were on security that night. Until they came, a few more patients had woken up and come out to the corridor. Thankfully, without a big problem, we sent the patients back to their rooms and calmed the environment. We still couldn't find the woman who ran away just now. We all tried to find where that woman was hiding. This woman came to the hospital a week ago. Her son brought her back and left her. Her son said that his mother was nervous, sometimes had nervous breakdowns, and they couldn't handle it anymore. While looking for her, checking empty rooms one by one, I heard a strange sound. The place where the sound came from was the laundry room. I came to the door of the room and opened it slowly. It was dark around. I had to go a few steps forward to turn on the light. When I entered and turned on the light, that old woman was crying, crouched in a corner of the room. I felt sorry for her. She didn't feel safe at all. She was afraid of the people around her, thinking they would harm her. With a very calm voice tone, without approaching her, I said, "Are you okay? Please allow me to come to you. I can help you." She slowly raised her head and looked at my face. "You can't help me. Turn off the light and go. They will find me here because of you. Just go away," she said. "No one can hurt you. Please calm down," I said. When I went to her to help her get up, she jumped on me. It was a bit surprising that a woman of this age was so strong. She climbed on me and grabbed my throat. While we were struggling with her, the staff who heard our voice came running and took that woman off me. I sat where I was to come to myself a bit. When I calmed down and got up, suddenly my head spun. Although it was difficult, I slowly pulled myself out of there, holding on to places. They had calmed and put the woman to sleep. I cleaned my hands and face, put on a band-aid. I feel very weak at the moment. I want to rest for half an hour. "You manage, when I come you go and rest," he said. I said okay, no problem. After Aaron left, I leaned back and took a deep breath. It was very quiet around. Since it was my first night, it was a bit difficult to stay awake. If I sat a little more, I would fall asleep. So I got up to walk a little to wake up. I decided to walk. I couldn't get that woman out of my mind. She was even scaring me. Despite having security cameras everywhere, I was still a bit scared. I was walking down the corridor again. When I was at the beginning of the corridor, I paused and looked around carefully. The doors of the rooms were wide open. I was sure that the doors were closed when I passed here a while ago. I took a few steps and came in front of one of the open doors. I looked inside. It was dark inside. I slightly turned on the light. The patient was standing in front of the window. When I asked why he was standing at this hour, he didn't answer. I looked a little more carefully and saw that his eyes were closed. He must have been sleepwalking. I approached him slowly and helped him to go to his bed. He was already in bed. As I was leaving, I heard a whisper behind me. When I looked back, there was nothing. The patient was sleeping. I quickly left the room and closed the door. When I left the room, I saw that all the doors were closed. I thought all of this was due to sleep deprivation. As I was thinking about what I could do to stay awake, I thought of Aaron. Why wasn't I going to check on him? Maybe he woke up, I thought. I went to his room, opened the door and entered. There was no one in the room. I called out for Aaron. It was silent. He probably went to the toilet or something, I thought, and was about to leave the room when I heard someone calling me. It was Aaron's voice. When I looked back, he was nowhere to be seen. However, his voice was still coming. Suddenly, I realized he was under the bed. I quickly went to him and asked what he was doing there. "Why did you go under the bed?" When I asked, he said, "Be quiet, come here." He pulled my arm to get me under the bed. At any moment I said, "Stop messing around, get out of there, what happened, tell me." He said, "They are coming." He forced me under the bed. While under the bed, he whispered in my ear, "Don't make a sound and carefully look at the door." I was holding my breath as he said, and I was paying attention to the door. It wasn't long before I saw someone tall, strangely dressed, and quite scary walking in the corridor. I got goosebumps. After he passed and left, Aaron said to me, "Did you see? I saw him just now when you were walking in the corridor. He was behind you. But you didn't see him. I was very scared that he would do something to you," he said. I didn't say anything. I was just looking into Aaron's eyes. When he saw how scared I was, his facial expression changed and he started to laugh. He was laughing with such a high-pitched voice that it seemed like the person who told me to be quiet, don't make a sound, hide here, wasn't him. He lost himself completely. His facial expression was terrifying. His eyes were huge. As I tried to get out from under the bed, he grabbed my leg and started pulling me back under the bed. As I tried to break free from his hand, I heard footsteps again. The scary person from earlier was coming back. As I screamed, he was speeding up. He was even running. Suddenly, he appeared at the door. His face was very scary. While he was watching me with those scary eyes, Aaron was holding my leg tightly and laughing with a scary voice. It seemed like he wanted to help him with me. Suddenly, everything became pitch dark. I felt like I was in a void. I had no idea where to go or what to do because I couldn't see or hear anything. As I was trying to understand what was happening, suddenly I felt a breath on me. Quite loudly, even in my ears, I heard a scream in a way. Involuntarily, I screamed too, and at that moment, I fell asleep. I realized I fell asleep. I got up from the chair in sweat and blood. Even if it was a nightmare, it was really scary. I couldn't breathe. I needed to get some air to calm down and come to myself. I got up and headed straight for the door. I went outside. After taking a deep breath a few times, I wiped the tears from my eyes. Tomorrow, I would talk to my friend and tell her that I would not work in her place anymore. This much action was enough for me on the first night. I had never experienced such things until now. No matter how sleep-deprived I was, there were no bad dreams or strange things. It was best for me to work during the day again. I would tell my friend in a suitable language that I couldn't work. While I was thinking about this, suddenly I noticed someone watching me from afar. It was dark. I could only see that there was someone there. I didn't know if it was a woman or a man, young or old. There was a human silhouette there. It wasn't moving at all. It looked like that for a few seconds. Then, no visitors would come to visit the patient relatives at this hour. I wondered why this person was standing there at this hour of the night. I took a few steps forward and tried to talk to that person, but suddenly he disappeared from sight. It was like a joke. It would be great if I could survive the night without going crazy. As I turned back and wanted to enter the hospital again, I suddenly stopped. Because on the glass of the door, I saw the reflected silhouette of the person who was watching me from the darkness into the hospital right behind me. I couldn't swallow. I was hesitant to turn around and look back. However, how could I not see that he had come up to me? It had only been a few seconds since I turned my back. It was impossible for him to come this fast. I guess I was still dreaming. I couldn't wake up. The best thing was to return to the hospital without doing anything. Just as I was about to take a step, the person behind me said hello. When I turned around and looked, I saw a middle-aged man with dirty clothes, his hair and beard mixed together. I was devastated when I first saw him because he really had a strange appearance. When I asked him what he wanted, he bowed his head and said, "I am really hungry. I want something to fill my stomach." I told him that the cafeteria was currently closed, and I couldn't give him anything to eat. He raised his head and said, "But I can't hold on until morning." I thought for a while. "Wait here, I will bring you some snacks," I said. The man was happy. "Okay, I am waiting for you." "I am not going anywhere," he said. I went inside and came to the changing room. I had a few cookies and a chocolate in my bag. I took them and came back to the hospital door. I went out and while giving him the food I asked, "Why aren't you at home? What are you doing on the street at this hour?" The man laughed and said, "Look at my state, do I look like I have a home?" He was right. I gave him the food and went inside, closed the door. The man had already started eating the cookies and chocolate without even waiting for me to enter. It was clear that he was very hungry. When I came inside, Aaron had woken up and was looking for me. "Where are you?" he said. "I am looking for you." "I am fine, everything is okay." I just went to the door to get some air, I said. Even though he said, if you want, go and rest a bit, I am here. I didn't want to sleep. When I slept, I saw those bad nightmares. So I said, no, thank you. We sat down and chatted for a while. Erhan talked about some of his military memories. Some were funny, some were interesting. He asked me, what are you doing? We never met. I guess you just started working in this hospital. Otherwise, I would have seen you at least once. Yes, it hasn't been long since I started working. I have been working for 2 months and it's my first time on the night shift, I said. Yes, I know. The night shift is hard, staying awake, dealing with patients, especially for a woman, it's a more difficult situation, he said. As we chatted and talked, we didn't realize how time passed. It was morning. The shift was over. My eyes were almost closing from fatigue. I changed my clothes, took my bag, and headed home. When I came home, I took a hot shower and threw myself into bed. I slept for 6 hours straight. When I woke up, my stomach was growling. I was hungry. I quickly went to the kitchen and ate something. I was feeling very tired. Staying awake at night was very hard. I sat on the couch and watched TV for a while. I felt a void inside me. I was very indecisive about calling my friend and telling her that I couldn't go to work. After all, she trusted me. I didn't want to leave her halfway. It was just a few days anyway. I thought it wouldn't be a problem. I prepared something for myself for the evening and put it in my bag. In the evening, when Seda came from Seda's, I was also leaving the house. Seda saw me at the door. Girl, I miss you. When does your shift end tonight? She said. You know it's just for a few days. She asked for it, so I couldn't refuse her. I said. Okay, no problem. Did you eat something? She asked. I said yes. Thank you, I really like the taste of the food, I said. In our house, it was always Seda who cooked the meals because her taste was very good. I know how to cook but not as much as her. Tonight, I felt like my fatigue had doubled. My back, my shoulders, everywhere was hurting. I wanted to sit in a corner and wait for the morning prayer without doing anything. However, this was impossible. When our shift started, we had to check all the patients. Even today, a patient had come. She was a young girl. They told us to pay special attention to her. We had to check on her frequently tonight. It was her first night here. It must have been quite hard for her. After Erhan checked the patients, we came in front of the room of the new patient. We opened the door and entered. She was sitting on her bed crying. When I went to her and asked how she was feeling, she immediately wiped her tears. She probably didn't want us to see her crying. However, her eyes were very red. It was obvious from every aspect that she was crying. In a normal way. I am fine, thank you. How are you? She said. We looked at each other. Normally, we were not used to patients giving us this kind of answer. I am fine, thank you, I said. The patient was quite young. She was at most 24 to 25 years old. What was her name? This beautiful girl came here because she had nervous breakdowns and constantly wanted to commit suicide. These incidents started after she lost her mother and father in a traffic accident. No one would want to be in her place. I really wanted to help her. This place was not for her. Involuntarily, I said, "My condolences." She raised her head and asked why. Aaron looked at me and shook his head. "I wish you hadn't said that," he said. When I asked if Nayland died, she said, "Excuse me, I said it for your family." Her facial expression changed and she said, "My family is not dead, they are alive. In fact, they will visit me soon. They will come. If you don't believe it, you can stay here and see," she said. I didn't know whether she was right or not, whether it was good or bad. It was a very painful scene. It was very hard for someone so young to be here at this age. After a little chat and giving her the medications, we left. There was nothing to say all of a sudden. You know, I lost my family too, but when I was a child, I was much younger. My parents died in a fire. Growing up without a mother and father is really hard. After they died, my relatives sent me to an orphanage, and I grew up there. He said. I didn't know this. I was really sorry. But thank God, look, today you have a good job, a good life. Most importantly, you are healthy. I said. Yes, of course, I am grateful for my situation. While we were talking about such things, the phone rang. It was security calling, saying that one of the patients was outside and trying to enter other patients' rooms. We immediately went to the place the officer told us. When we got there, we were very scared when we saw the footprints on the ground. We immediately followed the footprints. The footprints went in and out of several rooms, then headed towards the bathroom. When we came to the bathroom door, we heard the sound of water coming from inside. When we wanted to open the door and enter, we saw that it was locked. Erhan said, You go and inform the officer. If the patient has harmed himself, we also need to be cautious. I ran to the phone and called security several times, but no one answered. When I turned around to go to Erhan, I saw Nalan standing in front of me with blood all over her. When I said, Calm down, let me help you, she said, No, you can't help me, and ran away from me. I shouted Erhan. I don't know if he heard me or not, but I couldn't just leave her like that. I wanted to follow her and prevent her from harming herself more. Thankfully, one of the security officers cut her off and caught her. Let's take her to her room and give her a sedative, we forgot about her. Meanwhile, there was no news from Erhan. She was a very beautiful girl, but her fate was not beautiful. After she fell asleep, I left the room and came to the place where I left Erhan just before. The door was open, but there was neither Erhan nor anyone else. Suddenly, I heard Erhan's voice. He was covered in blood. When I asked him if he was okay, he said everything was fine, he just saw a patient cleaning the blood in the bathroom. While helping him, he also got blood on me. He said. Okay, but why is he covered in blood? I asked. I don't know, there were no cuts or scratches anywhere. I have no idea where the blood came from. What did you do? He said. I told him that Nalan was also covered in blood, but I didn't know where that blood came from. It was strange, we were looking at each other. Nothing like this had happened until now. The best thing was to go and learn the truth of the incident from the cameras. We went to the camera room together, and wanted to learn why the patients were covered in blood. We all gathered around the computer. The security officer opened the camera. At first, everything was calm. Then the camera blurred the image as if it was broken, and then suddenly the image was completely gone. While trying to fix it, this time the lights were gone, everything had become dark. The security officer told us, Don't worry, the generator will start working in a while. But the generator did not work. No matter how long we waited, either the electricity came back nor the generator worked. The security told us, There is something wrong here, I will go and check. The security went out of the room to check the generator. Let's go and check on our own, or let's wait here. Strange things have been happening since yesterday. I have been working here for a long time, I have never encountered such consecutive mishaps. It seems to be your fate, he said smiling. We sat in the computer room and waited for the security officer to come. A few minutes later, the generator was working. Erhan said, Let's go and check the patients again. I don't want any problems. We went down and checked again. There was no problem. Everything was fine. It seemed to be a long night. The clock just wouldn't pass. Towards the morning, when Erhan saw that I was very tired, he said, Go and sleep a little if you want, there is not much left for your shift to end. You haven't rested since you came yesterday. These 2 days have been very hard for you. I think you deserve to rest. I slightly nodded my head. Okay, I said. I went to one of the empty rooms and lay down. I had just closed my eyes when I heard a click. I immediately opened my eyes and looked around. It was calm, there was nothing. I closed my eyes again. This time it wasn't a click, it was a noise. I woke up jumping from my place, turned on the light and looked around. Under the bed, in the cupboard, everywhere, there was nothing. I was very tired, I didn't want to think about anything. I turned off the light and lay down on the bed. At that moment, I realized that someone was trying to strangle me. I couldn't fully see his face, but I thought it was one of the patients. It was very hard to get rid of his hand, I didn't have the strength. Finally, I kicked him with my foot, got up and I ran towards the door and threw myself outside, rushing to him. I told him that one of the patients had gotten out of their room again and tried to strangle me. He immediately got up from where he was sitting and went towards the room. There was no one in the room. When he asked if what I saw was a dream or reality, I got angry at him. I am not insane, okay? I am telling you I saw someone. They strangled me. Look, my throat is all red, I said. No, there is actually nothing, please calm down. You are very tired, that's why you are seeing strange things, he said, taking me back to the room. I will wait here until you fall asleep, don't worry, he said. As soon as I closed my eyes, I fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already morning, the shift was over. I quickly gathered my things and headed home. As soon as I got home, I threw myself into bed. In my dream, I was struggling in bed at the hospital, my arms and legs tied. Above my head I saw people with masks on their faces and bloody hands. They were smearing their bloody hands on my body, constantly pulling at me. It was painful. Then they dragged me out of bed by my arms and took me somewhere. No matter how much I screamed and shouted, no one could hear me. Finally, the place they brought me to was a bathroom with a very disgusting appearance and a very bad smell. The bathtub was filled with mud. They threw me into that mud. As I tried to get out of it, they were trying to push me deeper into the mud, preventing me from getting out. I struggled a lot to wake up, I tried very hard. Finally, I managed to open my eyes. As soon as I opened my eyes, I jumped out of bed and stood up. I threw myself in front of the window and took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. I was scared that something would happen to me. I couldn't stand experiencing so many nightmares and terrifying events. I had decided I would not go to work today, I would take a leave. My mind was not in the right place, I needed to rest. However, no matter who I called at the hospital, no one answered the phone. So, I had to get ready and go to work reluctantly. When I arrived there, the front of the hospital was filled with police. When I entered and asked the first person I encountered what happened, they said a patient and a caregiver had thrown themselves off the top of the building. How could this happen? Who did this? When I asked, they said a new patient had come the other day, Naylin. While she was throwing herself down, one of the caregivers tried to prevent her. But unfortunately, they both fell and died. When I asked which caregiver it was, they didn't answer right away. They stammered, saying they didn't know exactly, and moved away from me. However, it didn't take long for me to learn this. The caregiver they were talking about was my housemate, Seda. She had also fallen from the top of the building with Naylin and died. I was frozen in shock at what I heard. No, it couldn't be Seda. I had seen her this morning. I couldn't get used to her absence, she was my closest friend. I literally turned to stone. When the doctors around saw my state, they immediately rushed to me. When they tried to calm me down, I realized at that moment that I had no difference from those patients. I felt like them. So many doctors trying to calm me down, trying to stop me, was really a painful scene. A few minutes later, I had managed to control myself. I had stopped and was just blankly looking into the distance and crying, mumbling, "Seda." When one of the doctors asked what happened to her, why she did this, they said, "I don't know, she suddenly went crazy. Her nerves must have broken down. This girl has been working the night shift for the last 2 days. It probably affected her too." During this time, I heard a very familiar voice. It was Seda's voice. Coming to me, she said, "Honey, what happened to you? I just heard, are you okay?" When I lifted my head and looked at her face, I hugged her tightly, crying loudly. "They said you died, that you fell from the top of the building with Naylan," I said. Seda looked at me with surprised eyes and asked who told me this. I said I didn't know, a nurse told me. "Honey, don't believe everything. Look, I am alive," she said. When I asked if Naylan was still okay, she said the new patient was fine, not to worry. When I asked why the police had come, this time everyone looked at each other even more surprised. "Which police?" they said. "Are you joking? There were a lot of police outside. Everyone was in chaos here. I have been trying to reach you since morning." I said as I was saying these things, I saw everyone looking at me with surprised eyes. I realized I did something wrong. They locked me in one of the rooms like the other patients. I didn't want them to give me medication every day, so I immediately stood up and said, "I am experiencing these things because I am exhausted." I left the crowd and went to the bathroom quickly. I washed my face and tried to compose myself. "Come on, girl, pull yourself together," I said to myself. Everything would be fine. I was experiencing these things only because I was sleep deprived. While I was thinking that everything would be fine, actually, something even worse was waiting for me. The night shift had started again. I was going to be more careful to make this night different from the previous 2 nights, and I had pulled myself together. While we were sitting downstairs with Aaron, the security guard came to us and said, "You know, the video you wanted to watch on the camera the other day, there's not even a single record of what happened there." It was really very strange, and he left. It was already past midnight that night. I didn't even sit down to avoid falling asleep. I went up and down the corridor. After a while, Aaron said, "Yasemin, is this how you are going to do it until morning? Come, sit down, rest a bit. I heard you acted a bit strange today, you cried. Did you experience something again?" he said. I said no, nothing happened. Everything is fine, don't worry. Just my nerves are a bit upset these days, but it will pass. Everything is not fine. I smiled and said let's go check on the patients. Aaron said okay, wait, let me finish the work in my hand and then we can go. The work in his hand was fiddling with his phone. I waited for him. I said come finish your work. I slowly went towards the rooms. After checking a few patients, I came to the front of Naylan's room, opened the door and entered. When Naylan saw me, she said, "Can you please close the door?" After entering, I closed the door. "You look better today," I said. "Thank you, I want to tell you something," she said. I said, "Of course, you can tell. I don't remember what happened yesterday. I just saw you in my dream last night. I was saying that I hurt and upset you. Did I really hurt you?" she said. "No, everything is fine. There is no problem. Why haven't you slept until this hour?" I asked. "No, I am waiting for my mother, you know. Today is my birthday. She will bring me a gift, she promised," she said when I wished her a happy birthday. "Don't worry, this will pass. Just take good care of yourself and try to stay here," I said. "No, look, my mom is there. Look at her hand, a big gift box. She didn't forget my birthday. She brought my gift as she promised," she said. Then she got up and started jumping on the bed. Although I tried to calm her down, it didn't work. I thought it would be better to go and call Aaron. When I came to the door, I realized the door was stuck. I tried to open it, but it didn't work. When I turned around and looked, Naylan was not on my bed. "Naylan, where are you?" I called out. The voice was coming from under the bed. I went to her and tried to pull her out from under the bed while holding her arms. I am scared, they came to take me," she said. "Don't be afraid, there is no one here other than you and me. No one will take you anywhere, please come out," I said, holding her arms. I pulled her out from under the bed and helped her sit on the bed. Her hands had become ice cold, she was shivering. I could see the fear in her eyes. I stroked her hair and took her face into my palms. My dear, don't be afraid. Look, I am with you. Don't worry, everything will be fine, I said. Suddenly she hugged me. They came, look there, they want to take me, she said. The moment I turned my back, I froze. The black entity I saw in my dream the other day was there. It was really very scary. I took Nalan by the arm and came to the door. I tried to open the door many times, but it didn't work. I called Aaron many times, but he couldn't hear my voice. Nalan's body was getting colder and colder. It was like ice. Suddenly she fainted and fell at my feet. While I was trying to wake her up, I saw that black entity coming closer to us. I couldn't open the door, but I couldn't stay next to Nalan either. I pulled back to a corner of the wall. The black entity clung to her throat, opened its mouth wide, and the smokes coming out of its mouth covered Nalan's entire body. Nalan's body turned purple all of a sudden, and that black entity disappeared suddenly. At that time, the door was opened from the outside. I went to the door and opened it, and went to Aaron. I told him that Nalan was not well and that something happened to her. Aaron rushed with me to the front of Nalan's room. When we opened the door and entered, Nalan was sitting on her bed. When Aaron went to Nalan and asked if she was okay, she nodded and said, "Yes, I am fine, thank you." Aaron turned to me and said, "What happened? What happened here?" "Nalan is fine, nothing seems to have happened to her. It seems you need treatment first, Yasemin." And he left angrily. I turned back and looked at Nalan. She had a very scary expression on her face. She was grinning, and it was clear from her every state that she was pleased with what happened. I left the room and closed the door. As I was going back from behind Aaron, I was also trying to explain to him. Aaron was not listening to me. He was moving away from me, saying, "You are sick, you need some treatment." Was I really going crazy? Had I become like those patients? I came and sat down, trying to think, but I was also tired of thinking. I was experiencing very meaningless things. I didn't know what to do or who to tell these events to. Before I told the details to Aaron, he was treating me like this. If I told the details, he would directly lock me in one of the rooms. They would force me to take medication. I decided not to tell him anything. An hour later, Aaron came to me and apologized, saying, "Sorry. Sorry for being too pushy. I sometimes experience such things too. Forgive me for being harsh on you." He extended his coffee cup towards me. I accepted this coffee with a smile. "It's okay, no problem," I said as we drank our coffee. While we were drinking, Aaron said to me, "I want to tell you something, but don't take it the wrong way." When I told him he could tell me, he grabbed my arm and said, "Come with me, I have something to show you." I left my coffee on the ground and went with him. At the end of the corridor, there was a locked room. He took the key out of his pocket and opened that room. We entered, and after entering, he locked the door again. When I asked why he was locking the door, he approached me and looked into my eyes. "I really like you. I have been trying to say this for days, but we have experienced so much that I couldn't find the opportunity. You are very beautiful," he said, approaching me and kissing me on the lips. Although I thought what he was doing was wrong, I couldn't resist him. After kissing me for a few seconds, he wrapped his arms around my waist and pulled me closer. I didn't want to go any further. Even though I said now is not the time, he didn't want to let me go. Actually, experiencing something like this on top of so many complicated events had been nice. I didn't want to lose myself, but it was hard to resist. I felt his warm breath and lips on my neck. Suddenly, I felt a burning pain. While trying to push him away, he started to press me even more. It was hurting, even though I told him to stay away from me. He didn't listen. I screamed and asked for help. While he was trying to silence me, I bit his hand and ran towards the door. Although he had locked the door earlier, it was open. I ran quickly in the corridor, seeing Aaron coming from the opposite side. I turned back and looked. There was no one. To avoid him seeing me in this state, I entered one of the patient's rooms. This room belonged to a 50-year-old man named Nedim. He was sleeping. I tried to be quiet not to wake him up. A few minutes later, I got out of the bed and quickly came to the bathroom. While thinking it would be good to stay here for a while, I heard Aaron's voice at that time. "Yasmin, do you need anything? Are you okay?" he asked. This time I wasn't going to tell him anything. Because if I talked a bit more, he would believe I had lost my mind. I told him, Yes, everything is fine. I just felt a bit nauseous." I washed my face and hands and came out of the bathroom. I came next to Aaron. He was sitting and looking at the files. I tried to chat with him as if nothing had happened. However, he wasn't talking to me. I said to him, "Today is my last day here. Are we going to part on bad terms?" He said to me, "I think it's good for both you and the patients that this is your last day at this hospital. You should not work for a while. Go home and rest. You are not well." I told him, "Please let what happened stay between us. I don't want anyone to hear it. You know it's my first time on the night shift, and these things are happening because of fatigue and sleep deprivation. Otherwise I am not normally like this." He said to me, "Okay, don't worry, I won't tell anyone. But you need to stay home and rest. You can't help anyone in this state." I said, "I will rest for a while. Take care of yourself, okay? I will come back in half an hour," and stood up and left. A long time had passed, at least an hour or more. I wondered why he still hadn't come back. I stood up and went to the front of his room. Aaron was sleeping. I went to wake him up, but when I was about to touch him, I heard a voice from behind. "Don't touch him, he is sleeping." When I turned around, I saw Naylin. When I asked her why she came out of her room, she said, "I need you." I said, "Okay, I am coming. Please go to your room, don't come out." "No, you need to come now, please," she said, not letting me wake him up. I was following Naylin, but she wasn't going to her room. "Naylin, where are you going? Please go to your room, tell me what you want," I said, but she didn't answer. She was walking fast. I was following her quickly. Suddenly I found myself on the top of the building. Naylin was preparing to jump. As I went to her, "Please, you are still very young. You will see, everything will be fine. Everything will get back on track. Don't kill yourself," I said. "I am scared, please hold my hand," she said. "Okay, come a little closer to me. Hold my hand, please don't do this," I said. While I was saying these things, there was a slight smile on her face, as if she was mocking me. As I was about to hold her hand, she let herself fall down. I screamed, shouting, "Naylin!" But she was already gone. I ran down quickly, entered Aaron's room and woke him up. When I told him that Naylin had committed suicide and he should call the police immediately, he grabbed my throat, trying to strangle me. "It's all because of you. You did all of this," he accused me. I managed to escape from his hands and threw myself out of the room. When I came out, I couldn't believe my eyes. All the patients were covered in blood and they were all saying that I had injured them. They were blaming me and they were all coming towards me. As I was stepping back, my foot slipped and I fell to the ground, but I had no time to lose. I quickly got up and ran towards the exit. Everything was dark. There was nothing to do. There was nothing. I was running, shouting for help. After a while, terrifying sounds started to come from around. Sometimes I heard Aaron's, sometimes Naylin's voices. They were mocking and laughing at me. There were creatures running fast around. I couldn't see them exactly, but I could feel their presence. Every part of my body was aching. I couldn't bear this pain anymore and fainted. When I opened my eyes, I was in my bed. All these events were real, but some details in my dreams were not real. In my dreams, I am a caregiver, I have a boyfriend, and I am with another caregiver, Naylin, helping patients like me. Sometimes while wandering in the hospital corridors, I think I am a nurse, not a patient. the paranormal events I experience, and the things I see destroy my perception of reality. I wish it wasn't like this. I wish these terrifying events never happened. I wish there were no crises. I was a normal person too. Maybe I could win the university of my dreams. I could become a nurse. But unfortunately, I couldn't. My dear friend Seda brought me here. She left me in this hospital. I know it was very hard for her too, but she was afraid I would harm her. The beggar man outside is always helping me in my dreams, constantly asking me for something. I don't know who he is. Maybe he is my guardian angel. The only thing that doesn't scare me in my dream is that man. Maybe his appearance can be strange, but I can feel the purity in him. Soon Nayland will come and give me one of those injections again. She doesn't just do it when I have a crisis. She has to do it once a day because when I have a crisis, I get worse and then these injections don't work. This is my story. I wrote in the diary. I took a deep breath. Poor Yasemin, I feel very sorry for her. She can dream beautiful dreams different from other patients. But there are things that make her unhappy in those dreams. I asked her to write these dreams in a diary because I know her dreams. How much longer she will live with these drugs, how much longer she can endure, I don't know, but the only thing I know is to appreciate our lives while we are alive. No matter how difficult you are, never and never think of suicide. Because death is never a solution. I am Yasemin's caregiver, Demet. To put it briefly, Yasemin was brought to this hospital by her friend 2 years ago. Yasemin's father was a very angry man. He got angry at the slightest thing, constantly applying violence to his wife and child. This violence ended with a murder one day. The father stabbed Yasemin's mother in front of Yasemin, and then cut her into pieces and filled the bags. After seeing these, she became mentally ill. She started to see things that didn't exist. She was in the last year of high school and was striving to win the university. She couldn't realize her dream of winning the university. Last year, her father committed suicide in prison. Her friend brought the news to Yasemin. We didn't know about this news. If we knew, we would never allow her to tell. But when Yasemin learned, we couldn't get her out of the crisis for 2 days. We had to constantly put her to sleep with injections. She really experienced the severe trauma. That's why she is one of our special patients. I try to show her as much attention as possible. I understand that life sometimes doesn't treat all of us fairly. While we carve a path for ourselves, we are unaware of the surprises life has prepared for us. Know the value of your life, your freedom, your health. The story is over, friends. Thank you for listening. I love you all. If you are not subscribed to my channel yet, you can subscribe and turn on notifications to be informed about the upcoming videos. See you in the new videos. Goodbye.